Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for, from wherever you're listening. Thank you for checking in on Radio Retrospekt, where everything you hear is from that year. I'm your host, Antonio Polanco. With me is my trusty co-hostiest with the mostiest, Alexander Martinez. Alex, say hi to the good people.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening.
So basically, this is our inaugural podcast, and we want to just, it's going to be a little bit like History for Dummies. We'll focus in on 1 year in every episode and kind of let you guys know. It's a refresher course, really, of all the interesting things, important things, events, people, places that happened in that year. And Alex, for our first show, what year will we be discussing today?
We're doing 1970.
1970. So to start, let's talk about the economics of that year, Al. So we had what were some of the not interesting, but what did some things cost?
Sure. The average cost of a new house was $23,450.
Nice.
The average income per year,
$450 for a new house.
Yes, it's ridiculous. The average income per year was $9,400.
Mm-hmm.
The average monthly rent was $140.
Oof.
I know.
Yeah.
My cell phone bill costs more.
Yeah. And we're recording, just so you guys know, we're recording in New York City. And just hearing that, it brings a tear to my eye, really. $140 for rent, that'd be great.
The cost of a gallon of gas was 36 cents.
Yep. If you wanted to buy a stamp, that cost 6 cents. Or if you wanted to buy a Sports Illustrated, that cost 15 cents.
A brand new AMC Gremlin was $1,879.
Right. You had a 1-carat diamond ring. That was $299, guys, for a ring back then in 1970.
A 4-pound bag of apples was 59 cents.
Yep.
Dog food, 12 cans was $1.
Yep.
Head and Shoulder shampoo was 79 cents.
Mm-hmm.
To listen to music, an 8-track stereo tape player cost you $38.99.
Oof. That's for a 8-track in a car, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And for all the parents who wanted to buy something for their little one, they wanted to buy them a Barbie doll. That cost $4.77. Yeah. So that's a little bit just on the economics, and again, to kind of give you a perspective of the economics of 1970. So now moving on, we're going to talk about international issues. And again, this is just kind of a refresher course podcast. You could literally do right, Al? You could literally do an entire podcast on any one of the things that we're gonna talk about here. But we're just gonna kind of go through and give you guys the greatest hits of 1970. So on the international front, we had Anwar Sadat became president of Egypt, and he was kind of, there wasn't too much he did at the very beginning. He did stop the police states that were running in Egypt, but he made his legacy known and was kind of known throughout history as the Arab pioneer of peace with Israel. Unlike a lot of other Arab leaders, he was one to look past the Arab-Israeli hatreds that had existed for so long. And he later won the Nobel Peace Prize. That was Mr. Sadat. He started his presidency in 1970. Some other things, Guyana became a republic within the Commonwealth of Nations. We also had the Aswan High Dam was completed, also in Egypt. Pan Am, they offered actually their first commercially scheduled Boeing 747 service, leaving from JFK International to London Heathrow Airport. And, they ended up having like 50 more 747s added to their fleet. It was the first airline to introduce the 747 was Pan American Airways to introduce this jumbo jet to the world with service from London, or from New York to London, and they eventually ended carrying 11 million passengers over 20 billion miles just in 1970, and that was the year they sort of revolutionized air travel with that wide-bodied airliner. Additionally, too, we had Biafra. They surrendered after a 32-month struggle, fight for independence from Nigeria. And so 1970 marked the end of the 3-year Nigerian Civil War. Just to give you guys some more info on this. So in 1960, Nigeria gained independence from Great Britain. And when they won their independence, their population was at about 60 million people, and it consisted of about 300 differing ethnic and cultural groups. We had the Muslim Hassas in northern Nigeria, and we had more Christian Igbos at the south. But a few years after their independence, and again, this is something that you could literally take up. I mean, right, Al? This could literally take up an entire podcast talking about the Nigerian Civil War. But in the end, and there was a lot of reasons for it, a lot of economic, ethnic, cultural, religious tensions that started to grow there, and it eventually exploded. And the Igbos decided to try to break off and create their own nation. But of course, Nigeria was not, their sort of government was not having that. They ended up landlocking Biafra, and I mean, by the end of the war, it was something like their estimates of mortality during the war ranged from about 500,000 to 3 million. So, unfortunately, a lot of lives lost in that struggle, and Biafra ended up having to surrender. But this was also something that the world really took notice of. The media kind of caught wind of what was happening, and it was the first time one of the first times that international sympathy for starving Biafran children would bring food and medicine. And actually, some of the founders of Doctors Without Borders started to take part and sort of help the Biafrans in this struggle. And they ended up having to establish that organization just as a response to this tragic war. Biafra surrendered on January 13th, 1970. And just on the last note on international, President Nixon ended up ordering the well-known, historically known, it'll all be forever known now, invasion of Cambodia, which kind of widened the war in Vietnam. And this was a response to him trying to, sort of stop the communist North Vietnamese attacks into South Vietnam. So he made it, official, and not even his Secretary of State or his Defense Secretary knew. They were kind of kept in the dark about his decision until he declared to a television audience that that American troops would be invading Cambodia. And really, he'd been bombing Cambodia for months before this major announcement. But people became really upset. There were a lot of protests after his announcement because they were really thinking that the war was de-escalating. But with this announcement, it kind of made it known that not only were they going to continue their campaign, but the war was actually going to be expanded. And a lot of Americans didn't really think this escalation was going to happen, but a lot of people got very upset about it. So, and that's international news right there, guys. Alex, why don't you take us through some of the things that happened in terms of space in 1970?
Sure thing. Japan becomes the fourth space power after the U.S., USSR, and France. On February 11th, 1970, Japan launches Osumi on a Lambda 4 rocket. It completes one orbit around the world before crashing back down to Earth. Another country joining the space race is China, when it launches the Dongfang Hong-1 on a Long March 1 rocket on April 24th, 1970. It lasts 20 days. It was equipped with a radio transmitter, which broadcast a song called "The East is Red."
And that was sort of a was that the Dongfang Hong, what that translated into?
Yeah, "The East is Red" is the translation of the Dongfang Hong.
Yeah. So you had Japan becoming a space power, and then, China following very soon after.
The Soviet Union lands the Lunar Cold 1 on Mare Imbrium on the moon. This is the first roving remote control robot to land on another celestial body and is released by an orbiting Luna 17 spacecraft. It returned more than 20,000 TV images and 206 high-resolution panoramas. It also performed 25 lunar soil analysis.
All right, so we kind of see, Russia becoming more skilled in terms of like their space exploration and the purposes of their space missions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think this is their response to us landing on the moon.
Right.
For the U.S., we have the famed Apollo 13 mission. It was the seventh manned space flight. An oxygen tank explosion cripples the service module, canceling the lunar landing. The crew survived despite the loss of power, loss of cabin heat, shortage of water, and the need to jury rig the CO2 removal system.
Al, this was the same Apollo 13 that the movie was based on, right?
Yes, it was the Ron Howard film.
That great Ron Howard movie with Tom Hanks. Okay.
The flight passed over the far side of the moon, making it the farthest human traveled from Earth. The mission was commanded by James A. Lowell, with John L. Swigert and Fred W. Mays.
And Kevin Bacon. Kevin Bacon always gets his in the end.
Kevin Bacon always survives.
Always.
They returned safely on April 17th. We also have the Explorer 1, which was the first spacecraft to detect the Van Allen radiation belt, which is a layer of energetic charged particles that is held in place around a magnetized planet.
Okay.
It was also the first American satellite from the Explorer program. It returned to Earth's atmosphere after 12 years in orbit.
Gotcha. All right.
We also have the Venera 7, which was launched by Russia on August 17th, 1970. It crash landed on Venus on December 15th, 1970, when its parachute failed to deploy. It was still functioning and was only able to send surface temperature readings, which gave a temperature of 887 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right, but this was significant because this was actually the first time anyone ever got data transmitted, right, from another planet.
Yeah, this was our first landing on another planet. We also had the eclipse of the century. A solar eclipse passes along the East Atlantic coast region. Totality is visible across southern Mexico, across the southeast coast of the United States, Nantucket, and Nova Scotia. It lasted for 3 minutes and 28 seconds.
It'd be hard not to look at that point, to look directly at it. I know you're not supposed to, but I'd be tempted. Be a horrible thing to do. When are we gonna see something like this again, Alex?
I believe the next one is in 2054.
Oh, that's not too far. Wait, what is it? 2016?
Hopefully we're still around for that one.
Yeah, we'll be all right. All right, so that was sort of some of the things that happened in terms of space and space technology. Let's move it to domestic. And what's going on in the United States, Al?
Well, we had the 19th U.S. census was recorded. It gave us a population count of 205 million.
And compare that to now, we're at what? Over 800 million?
I think we're over 300 million.
300 million.
Yeah.
What did I say? 800 million?
Yeah.
That'd be a lot of people.
Yeah, we're
That'd
not reaching a billion yet. we had the first Earth Day was celebrated on April 22nd worldwide. 1 million gathered in Central Park, and 60,000 gathered to hear U.S. Senator Edmund Muskie in Philadelphia's Fairmount Park. It was held to demonstrate support for environmental protection.
Right. And, you know, actually with that, with the first Earth Day, you also had the Environmental Protection Agency sort of start their operation, right?
Yes, sir. It was proposed by Nixon and signed by executive order. It was created for the purpose of protecting human health and the environment by writing and enforcing regulations based on the laws passed by Congress.
Yeah, what's going on with the EPA? They should be a lot busier now, right? Like,
yes, they should be, but
they get no love.
No.
And they're probably one of the, if not the most important, sort of like a government agency. So we also had a few other things happen in America at that time. The U.S., they lowered their voting age from 21 to 18, right? We also had the Controlled Substance Act. That was enacted in 1970, right, Al?
Yes, it was enacted on October 27th, 1970. It was
October 27th. That's 4 days. 4 days after my birthday, but 12 years before I would have been born, so I guess it doesn't count.
It was a statute prescribing federal U.S. drug policy under which the manufacture, importation, possession, use, and distribution of certain substances is regulated. It also created two federal agencies, the DEA and the FDA.
That they both started kicking around too in 1970. Interesting. So you see a lot of these agencies that would, you know, have a lasting effect on American culture kind of start in the year 1970.
I think we're just seeing like the beginnings of creation of things to better protect the U.S. citizens.
Oh, what else happened then?
Well, PBS begins broadcasting, and we see also the creation of the National Public Radio, or better known as NPR.
Okay. So NPR also started. What else you got, Al?
And that is it for the U.S. in 1970.
Interesting. Well, we did have some things happen in New York, also in 1970. We had the first New York City Marathon took place, and that was organized by Fred LeBeau and Vince Chiappetta, and that was held entirely in Central Park. So out of about 127 people that took part in that first race, only 55 men finished. There was one female entrant, one female runner, but she dropped out due to illness, strangely enough. And the winners, they were given inexpensive wristwatches and recycled baseball and bowling trophies after the race was done. The entry fee was $1, and the total event budget was $1,000 back then. So definitely a little different. Now, I mean, Alex, you've run the New York City Marathon, is that right?
Yes, I have.
Right. So, kind of thinking on then versus now. What do you think?
I'd rather do it the way it is now. 4 laps around Central Park sounds a little boring.
We had a few other things happen in New York. So the New York token, when we had tokens, throwback, went from 20 cents to 30 cents, and they started using larger tokens. And actually, the New York Knicks defeated the LA Lakers for their first NBA championship. This was the ninth. This is what I found. This was the 9th consecutive NBA championship series to feature a team from Cali, all of which were lost by the team from that state.
Wow.
So for the 7th time, the team was the Lakers, and the San Francisco Warriors were the other 2 times. But when the Knicks won, when they beat the Lakers, New York became the first city in the United States to win titles in the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, and the MLB, done over a span of just 30 years. And the Knicks also became the 3rd Big Apple team in less than 18 months to claim a Big Four championship, following the Jets in Super Bowl III and the Mets in the World Series.
That was a glorious year.
Yep. So now well, let's move on to some of the things that happened in terms of science and innovation in 1970. Al, you want to take us through that?
Sure. We had the first artificial gene was synthesized.
Mm-hmm.
The 1970s World Fair was held in Suita, Osaka, Japan.
Right. And actually, the IMAX projection system premiered there.
Yes, it was. We also saw a glimpse into magnetic levitation trains and mobile phone technology.
Cool. And what about some inventions from 1970, Al?
IBM introduces the floppy disk.
Yep.
We see barcodes, which are computer-scanned binary signal code, are introduced for retail and industrial use in England.
Okay. So sort of one thing that we use and one thing that has become a bit obsolete, but
Yes, the floppy disk has gone way of the dinosaur. We see microprocessors.
Yep.
And crazy glue.
Right, yeah. So crazy glue was invented in 1970, but the main ingredient, let me see if I can say this without totally butchering it. Cyanoacrylate, that was the main ingredient of crazy glue, was discovered in 1942 by Harry Coover while he was working for Kodak.
We also have the F-14 Tomcat is tested for the first time. We see this U.S. Fighter plane immortalized in the movie Top Gun.
That's right. Maverick would be proud. Goose, I don't think would really give a shit. But
Goose is dead.
Right. So going from the F-14, which was made famous by Top Gun, some really cool things happened in culture in 1970 with film. So we had movies like MASH, Patton, Love Story, Catch-22, The Aristocats, not to be confused with The Aristocrats. Came out in 1975. 5 Easy Pieces, the Clint Eastwood classic, Two Mules for Sister Sarah. We had that famous Martin Scorsese documentary, Woodstock, also came out then. Little Big Man, Tropic of Cancer, The Owl and the Pussycat, and one of my favorites, very weird experimental Western, El Topo, made by Alejandro Jodorowsky, which I would definitely recommend if you guys ever get a chance to want to see some really weird psychedelic Western. Definitely check out El Topo. Alex, it drives him crazy when I mention El Topo because he knows how much I love that.
I didn't really dig it much.
Yeah, he didn't really dig it. You didn't get it, Al, is what it was.
Yeah, I'll live.
All right. So we had a pretty interesting Oscar year, or in terms of like what happened with the Oscars that year, Alex.
Yes, sir. Midnight Cowboy wins for Best Picture.
Mm-hmm.
It remains the only X-rated film ever to win the Oscar for Best Picture.
Okay.
Although the R-rating classification of 1971 had taken place by then, or it was screened by a sitting president. Strangely enough, the year before, Oliver won Best Picture, the only G-rated film to do so.
So you had Oliver rated G win Best Picture, and then the very next year you had Midnight Cowboy, which was rated X, win Best Picture. Interesting.
We have notable Oscar winners. John Wayne for True Grit.
Mm-hmm.
Goldie Hawn won for Cactus Flower. And Gig Young won for They Shoot Horses, Don't They?
Yeah, that's another really great movie about some of the dance competitions that they used to have back in the 30s and the 40s. Those things went on for like days. Alex, can you imagine dancing for like 3 days straight?
No, I can't.
You can imagine running though for 3 days straight, right?
I can imagine running for a couple hours. 3 days straight is ridiculous.
We also had some kind of this is another sort of funny thing that we'll be doing. Some movies, some very interestingly named movies that came out in 1970. We had Hercules in New York. We had There's a Girl in My Soup, Dirty Dingus McGee, It's one of Alex's favorites. Cockeyed Cowboys of Calico County. What do you say to a naked lady? And my favorite, The Man Who Haunted Himself, which I can't even imagine what that movie's about. The Man Who Haunted Himself. All right, what about music, Alex?
Well, we had 4,000 albums and 5,700 singles were released in the U.S.
A lot of music.
This band broke the hearts of a generation. The Beatles disbanded. They released their final album, Let It Be, and by the end of the year, every member had their own solo album. They also released a movie.
Right.
The single, The Long and Winding Road, became their last U.S. number one and was never released as a single in Britain.
I can't really even say. I think I'd be sued if I sang that on our podcast. I don't even know if we're legally allowed to mention the Beatles without having to pay someone. Some unfortunate music deaths that happened that year. Right, Alex? We had Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. They both died of drug overdoses. And weirdly enough, both of them were 27 when that happened. We had Pink Floyd. They released their first number one album, which is called Atom Heart Mother.
Simon and Garfunkel sadly released their final album, Bridge Over Troubled Water. It wins Song of the Year.
Right, won the Grammy for Song of the Year. And another really, amazing album, Miles Davis's Bitches Brew, came out in 1970. That's actually been known as one of the first successful fusions of sort of rock and jazz. And it's still considered, one of Davis's, best albums and pretty much one of his best known albums. But he also made the final recordings for his experimental album Circle in the Round, which had sitar and tabla.
The Isle of Wight Festival takes place at East Afton Farm off the coast of England. Some 600,000 people attended the largest rock festival of all time.
That is a lot of people. Think about that. 600,000 people going to a rock festival.
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
And we had, and look at, if you see the lineup that at this festival, it was like Jimi Hendrix, The Who, The Doors, Chicago, Joan Baez, 10 Years After, Emerson, Lake and Peterson, The Moody Blues, Jethro Tull. So that's probably one of the largest rock festivals ever, was the Isle of Wight Festival. All right, Al, let's go from music to TV. So what were some of the shows that came out in the year that God forgot, 1970?
Well, we have the Mary Tyler Moore Show, The Odd Couple, The Partridge Family, All My Children, The Flip Wilson Show, and NBC Nightly News.
Right.
We also have Josie and the Pussycats and the Harlem Globetrotters. Monday Night
Classic
Football.
Harlem Globetrotters cartoon. I remember watching that.
I remember them on
Well,
Scooby-Doo.
I'm not that old, but I remember seeing. Oh wait, I'm actually remembering just watching them on YouTube like 2 weeks ago. Actually, I apologize for that. Sorry about that, guys.
We also have Monday Night Football debuting on ABC with Howard Cosell, Frank Gifford, and Don Meredith giving play-by-play.
Yep.
And to the surprise of no Jet fan,
Come on.
the Browns defeat the Jets.
Come on.
21.
Come on, man. Can the Jets win anywhere? Like, not even in history can they win. Well, actually, no. They won Super Bowl III, but did not do so well on Monday Night Football.
No,
so what was the score for that game again?
It was 31-21.
Of course. Yeah. In front of 80,000 fans.
Wow.
That first broadcast. Some cool books came out that year. I know some of these will hit your guys' ears the second you hear them. So we got I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, came out in 1970. 100 Years of Solitude. Jonathan Livingston Seagull, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. Fantastic Mr. Fox, Deliverance. I actually always get those two confused. Deliverance and Fantastic Mr. Fox. I don't know why. We had Being There. We have Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Also came out in 1970. We had The Lime Works, The Obscene Bird of Night, and The Secret Meaning of Things. I love those last two titles, too.
Those are cool, cool
sound
titles.
Very cool. I might name my first child The Obscene Bird of Night. That sounds like that'd be a good name for a boy or a girl. Or a book, in this case.
Sounds like a cool name for a band.
True. Very true. All right, Al. So we had a few quotes, too, that lasted the test of time. We had, it's not easy being green. And Kermit the Frog said that.
One of my favorites, I told my coach Jimi Hendrix just died, and I'm quitting the team to become a guitar player, by Joe Satriani.
That's right, guitarist, famed guitarist of Deep Purple and Chicken Foot, if I'm not mistaken. Classic band Chicken Foot. You had Ally McGraw say one of the classic sort of romance quotes from Love Story, and that is, "Love means never having to say you're sorry." I'm sure she looked a lot better than I did just saying that, right? And Coca-Cola's classic slogan, "It's the real thing," was introduced in 1970. All right. Awesome. So a few things. So we're going to just kind of finish the show here with some bullet points. Some other interesting things that happened in 1970 that maybe some people forgot about. So we had John Lennon's exhibition of Bag One at the London Arts Gallery was shut down by Scotland Yard for displaying erotic lithographs. Oh, Lennon causing some trouble, of course. I love that guy. Nixon signed a bill limiting cigarette ads from broadcast. And 1970 also showed the end of U.S. commercial whale hunting.
We have mathematician Kurt Gödel allows the circulation of his ontological...
Is it Gödel?
I think it's Gödel.
Gödel? Godel?
I'm going to go with Gödel.
All right, Gödel.
He allows the circulation of his ontological proof of the existence of God.
Nice. Had to be a mathematician.
We have the death of Brian Piccolo, a Chicago Bears player. Was inspiration for the book and movie, The Brian Song.
That's right. The one classic sports tearjerker that, people automatically, think of is Brian's Song.
I can't confirm. I did see it, and I did cry.
I don't know if you want to advertise that, Alex, but you wouldn't. You would not be alone. You would not be alone.
We also have Diane Crump, was the first female jockey in America to ride in the Kentucky Derby. She placed 15th.
She placed 15th. All right. And we had another interesting female first in American professional sports that year, right, Al?
Yes, sir. Patricia Palinkas was the first woman to play semi-professionally in an American football game for the Orlando Panthers.
Go Panthers.
The legendary Panthers.
Legendary Orlando Panthers.
She was a...
I used to dance under that name.
That was
Orlando Panthers.
She was a place kick holder for her husband, Stephen Palinkas. On her first play, Palinkas was attacked by Jets defenseman Wally Florence.
Again with the friggin' Jets.
They were still mad about losing to the Browns. Who admittedly, and not surprisingly, unsuccessfully attempted to break her neck.
Ooh.
As punishment for what he perceived as making folly of a man's game.
Wow. But she made it through that, and she actually came back, right?
Yes. She appeared 4 more times. 3 consecutive successful extra point kicks.
Nice.
And a field goal attempt that was blocked.
That's not so nice. But she came back. Yeah. Because it's not how hard you fall, right? It's how fast you can get up. So also in 1970, we had cult leader and, at the time suspected murderer Charles Manson. He released an album titled Lie, The Love and Terror Cult. And that was actually to help help finance his defense for his murder trial. Also, we had Totes. They brought the first quality folding umbrella to U.S. markets. Soon after, you'd find people on the street already selling knockoffs. Pretty soon after that.
Cheap knockoffs.
Yep. And the Wichita State. Oh, right. Also in 1970, I know you guys know this one. The Wichita State University football team's, quote, gold plane crashed in Colorado, killing most of the players. And they were actually on their way to a game with Utah State University. And then a month later, Southern Airways Flight 932 crashed in Wayne County, West Virginia. All 75 people on board, including 37 players and 5 coaches. From where, Alex?
The Marshall University football team.
From Marshall University team. They all passed away, and that was kind of made immortal. That was immortalized by the great film We Are Marshall.
Project Blue Book, the U.S. government study on UFOs from 1952 through 1970, a 14-part report was issued, but Chapter 13 was mysteriously missing, and it still is.
That was my bad. Actually, that was my fault. Chapter 13 is missing. I'll bring it back out. I'll go ahead and grab it. All right. What else we got, Alex?
We have Arco Santi, a desert utopia has begun. Italian-American architect Paolo Soleri began construction in 1970 to demonstrate how urban conditions could be improved while minimizing the destructive impact on the earth. He taught and influenced generations of architects and urban designers who studied and worked with him there to build the town.
That's right.
And we have the beloved Doonesbury comic strip Go National.
Nice. Very nice. So Doonesbury kind of got his start this year. That's it, guys. We want to thank you so much for listening. You can reach us in case there was anything that we messed up on. You have any corrections, you have anything that we might have forgotten to mention, please email us at radioretrospekt@gmail.com. And that is retrospect spelled RETROSPEK as in karate, T. And you could also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and that's at Radio Retrospekt. But we thank you so much for listening. Alex, do you have anything you wanna say before we let these good people go?
I just want to say thank you for listening and hope you stick with us.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you next episode where we'll be talking about 1980.